Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mile High Sports Symposium. I am JT Matthews on JT Matthews01 on X, and I'm here with the Dr. Nicholas Manning at DR_in Manning on X. Doc, welcome. Happy Monday. How are you today? I am back after a hiatus last week. I was under the weather, still fighting it just slightly, but I'm doing much better.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask how you doing. But not like the cool, like Joey Tribbiani way. Like
yeah.
But like, you good, bro?
I'm good.
I'm glad that you're back. It's hard to have a dynamic duo solo. So seeing your face makes my heart happy, especially on Draftmas Eve.
That's right, baby.
You know,
it's our favorite time of year.
You got to go with who brought you or something, you know? And we've been bringing each other together for a while on this here draft stuff. So you want to keep it tight? Otherwise,
yeah.
I got 4 kids home. 3 out of 4 test positive with strep. None of them are behaving as so that they're sick. So that's been,
of course.
But you know what? Could be worse. They're 24 hours on antibiotics now. So go do the things.
Yeah, now they can go do what they got to do without getting anyone else sick.
That's right. How about you? Let's
I can't. What does that say? Let's be.
Oh, let's be. Let's.
Oh, let's bow.
I'm gonna go. Let's bow. Let's.
I like it. I just am dumb, so I wasn't sure. What's up, guys?
That's true. I do not know that's not
true. Well, let's just jump into it. We got lots to talk about. We're gonna hit the playoff teams, and then we're gonna get right into the draft. So let's start with the Denver Nuggets. Nuggets play tomorrow. The series with the LA Clippers is tied 1-1. Just want to get your temperature on this series so far. What you've liked, what you haven't liked, what maybe has surprised you. Just let the people know.
Yeah, I was at the game Monday.
Monday.
And again, it was a underwhelming game from Jokic in the sense of he just didn't dominate the way that you have come to expect. And I'm prefacing this with he's getting graded on a different kind of curve than than anyone else. And I know how ridiculous sometimes it sounds when a guy has a triple-double, near triple-double in game 1, shooting 50% from the floor. Just seemed like he's pressing and seemed like the team was pressing. It definitely was a much more, I think, locked in effort from all of the guys. I felt MPJ was a significant presence for most of the game.
Yeah.
And then again, I think the desire to like make, every special or spectacular play, or instead of just some smart ones or just some, the extra easy bounce pass versus the cross court, no look, like just not smart, confident basketball. Definitely felt desperate. Right. And to think though, they didn't play well. Kawhi Leonard was magnificent.
Yeah, he was insane, man.
And they're a missed dunk from Aaron Gordon away from being in a different position, or MPJ losing the ball and then falling. You don't call a timeout when you scare a rebound to have an opportunity to tie it.
Yep.
The MVP of the league has a cleanish look. So does Christian Brown to tie it up. So it's not like they didn't have some chances still. This wasn't bad. It was a 3-point game overall, and a game that they had to feel pretty good about going into the final period. They're only down 2. And I think there's 2 ways to look at it. One, this is going to be a rock fight series, and it probably was going to go 6 or 7 anyway.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be a 6-game series, that'd be tough, but I felt really good about where the Nuggets were at. I think I overestimated the old coach, the new coach bump, and
yeah.
And the Clippers have been, what are they, 22-4 now in their last?
Yeah, something like that.
They've only lost one game at home in 2025 or something weird. Only a handful, like 11 period at home, but only one over the last several months. So it's going to be it's going to be a challenge, I think, going into LA. But my expectation isn't that they go win 2. It's to, again, keep the volley alive, come back with a home court advantage, and you hope that they're able to take game 3 or game 4 and come back. And so why wait for game 4 when game 3 will do? And it's not like, at least the environment at wherever they're playing at, the Clippers, that I don't even know what it is. It's not like the home court advantage.
I don't remember what it's called now either. It's new, so
not that intense. We don't even know the name of it. It's probably not. Ask my man Anthony Edwards. So, I didn't feel great about it anyway. I didn't feel overly good about the Nuggets. I think we saw the concerns. Michael Porter Jr. was checked out completely in game 1.
Yep.
Back in on game 2. But then they have 20 turnovers and 10 missed free throws. Like, yes, you will never win an NBA game against anyone other than the Hornets if you play like that. And, against a team with Kawhi Leonard, you're not gonna. I do like what they've done against Harden, what they've done against Powell for the first 2 games outside of, Norman Powell is able to hit a clutch 3. Nice job. But 90% of the time he's been just a dude out there. It's really been Kawhi in game 2, and it was James Harden for like a quarter in game 1. And you really feel like at least the recipe's there for this team to, if they played better, you cut those turnovers in half, play the exact same game, cut the turnovers in half. They probably win by double digits. So that's good. In the end, though, I'm not feeling overly confident that the Nuggets will get out of round 1.
Yeah, it's tricky, man. It's a tough series, and I think that I definitely underestimated LA to a degree. Mostly, I think just there's a historical precedence that LA is a kind of a choke job of the team when it comes to the playoffs, especially in the last couple of decades. But I think that like age, James Harden plays well in the playoffs until it's an elimination game, and then he shrinks. Kawhi, how healthy is Kawhi? How much can he give over the course of a series? I think those were big question marks, and I think that they've really stepped up and kind of put those questions to bed, at least for now. I wondered what game 2 would look like with the usage of Russell Westbrook in the first game versus Michael Porter Jr. I'm glad Michael Porter Jr. bounced back. He's valuable to have out there. He had 15 rebounds, 6 offensive rebounds, which is most on the team. So I don't really know that you can do much to fault him, aside from maybe being a little more aggressive on the offensive end or being willing to move off ball a little bit more. He's not great. If you get him ISO'd on a guard, something like that, he's probably going to get beat. So you got to be careful with that piece of the puzzle. But I think it really is going to come down to execution in the last minutes of games. And so far, it's been a split.
Yep.
For the first 2 games, you get down to the last 4 or 5 minutes, and it's the team that can minimize the mistakes that comes out on top. Jokic hasn't been very good at the foul line compared to what we've seen him.
Yeah.
He's got to make those shots for the team. You've got a lot of guys, especially when you get to the foul line outside of Jamal Murray, that just aren't super consistent. Aaron Gordon's improved. Michael Porter Jr. seems to always be like, a hit and miss. He'll make both or miss one. but you never know what to expect. Westbrook, same thing. He seems like he's higher than 50%, but it seems like every time he gets up there, I feel like there's a good chance he's going to miss. So I read something today that says the Nuggets' fatal flaw, and I want to get your take. Basically, I don't remember who it was. Someone on ESPN, I think, one of the whoever was, they were breaking down flaws for each team, and their takeaway was basically volume 3-point shooting. Nuggets have the lowest volume 3-point shooting in the playoffs. Is this something that's going to come back to bite them in the butt? And I wonder if that's true. I think that there is a certain way that this team likes to play that really you're not hunting the 3 ball. Jokic will find a wide open guy and then they'll take it, but sometimes they don't. You don't have the optimized personnel to be hunting 3-point shots on the perimeter all the time. So do you think that could be a fatal flaw for this team?
Yeah, I think so. If you maybe more of the spacing, I think. Okay. I think not having the consistent threats out there to create spacing. I think that's what worries me.
Right.
MPJ for any and all purposes, him being out there at least, at least creates the threat of a guy that can hit a knockdown jumper, right? I mean, you saw they were even giving ground to Jokic a little bit on Monday night, and so that to me is a little bit of the biggest concern when you don't have guys. And I think in an appropriate volume, right? That that if I don't close out, there's a 40% chance that there's going to be a 3, which analytically is not what you're wanting here. So for me, it's not even the percentage of makes of 3, blah, whatever math.
Sure,
it's the threat of of that. I do think when you're a volume 3 team, I think it's much easier to get a quick run, where you get a 9-2 run or, a 10-4 run because you hit a couple threes. It's pretty demoralizing, if you hit 2 baskets, they hit 2 baskets, there's a 3s, you're down 2, and that part is that momentum part isn't necessarily occurring much for the Nuggets, and especially how hard they got to work to get a 3. There's not a lot of swing, catch, shoot 3s where guys have a time to set and kind of do it in rhythm. It's usually off the dribble or off the screen and roll. And so they're working really hard for buckets. And I think a volume 3-point shooting team, I think, there's a little bit more confidence in being able to stretch the floor and make other guys commit. And in doing so, then I think you got more action inside. That said, I mean, they're a damn good offensive team. So it's not like they live by the 3, die by the 3. And so I don't think it'll be the reason that they lose this series. I think it's a contributor. Sure. Just having guys, I think, that aren't scared to yak it up. And, some of the guys that aren't scared to yak it up aren't necessarily the guys you want to shoot. I don't. Yeah, I love Russ. True. I do love Russ. I don't want Russ being my the guy on the end of swinging it around, yakking up that corner 3 every time. So, but that said, like someone's got to, if it's open shot, offense works. If you don't like that guy taking that shot, bench him. Like we got to have guys like in the end. I need guys that want to make that bucket, and it does seem like the Nuggets have a bunch of guys that don't want to make that bucket. Christian Brown taking that 3 at the end of the game, I think he rushed and didn't really know or understand how much time he had left. And a wide open look at it, I mean, not remotely close.
Yeah.
Not remotely close. Not to me is like, that's not a guy that's used to, if I get the ball, I'm going up, hand down, man down. And I don't know how I don't know. I don't think that you can do that. I don't think many guys just change their stripes. And so, I think this team has a recipe to win as currently constructed. that portion of it cannot be a part of the recipe without new ingredients. Like it won't be how this team works. You can't just flip the script. I don't care about the offensive system, blah, blah, blah. They just don't have guys that do that thing. They do a bunch of other good stuff, but that ain't it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do, what adjustments they make. I think they've got to figure out what to do or how they're going to free up Jamal a little bit more when they blitz that pick and roll, because they did that pretty effectively. And Jamal ended up just kind of dribbling out and resetting the offense, which, isn't the worst thing, but it's not getting guys, it's not taking advantage of what we do as a team best. It's not getting Jokic the ball and letting him facilitate from there. It doesn't allow you to sneak Gordon into the dunker spot and have that kind of wide open look. So they're going to have to figure out what to do with that. They might have to run some double screens. They might have to run some pick and roll initially with someone else. Maybe, start that action with Aaron Gordon or someone like that to get him a little more
there can
involved.
Be a lot of off-ball movement. You have Jokic. Like, the guy is the greatest passer in sports right now, regardless of sport. Like, and he can see over everybody. He can body up on the left side. You run off-ball action on the other side. Let him pick and choose who pops. I think there's ways to do it. Well, I mean, it's easy for us to say we're not playing the Clippers. A pretty good defense.
Sure.
But yeah, the fact that most of the guys that are going to shoot that are guys that are on the ball, right? So MPJ is really the only guy not on the ball, but he's not a guy that's running off. He's not Steph Curry running off screens, right? Like,
no,
that's not a strength of his either, which is just, it's like, I don't know what to do. All right, then you got to be the screener and you got to be ready to roll. Get some mismatches there. But yes, I said greatest passer in sports right now. He is better than Patrick Mahomes. Nikola Jokic is better passer than your mom's favorite quarterback, my mom's favorite, everyone's favorite quarterback. If you haven't watched Nikola Jokic pass the ball, do yourself a favor. Yeah, LeBron and Luka, better than all of them. Just do some highlights real quick. But the chat is blown up to get to Bronco stuff. So I know that we want to do all of the stuff, which I love doing. But I think I am a man of the people.
That's fair. I can accept.
I think really quick, because the Avs are important to us. Landy, without saying he's back. He's back.
I think tonight is going to be the night.
Yeah, he'll be back. That's mine. Will he make an impact on the ice? Question mark.
I mean, with at least an emotional boost. We'll see what happens. We won't belabor this, but tune in tonight. Watch the Avs, because it's going to be a great moment to see. It's going to be a great moment to see the captain back out there leading his troops. Like you said, to what degree we'll have to see, but we'll talk about what the people came here for, and that is NFL draft.
We'll take real quick. Landy has an assist tonight on the power play.
Okay.
He's gonna contribute. I think he's gonna be a man on a mission. Like, I
just want him to screen the hell out of goalies and put guys in.
I think he's gonna.
That's all I want.
And I think he'll get there. He'll fling a couple on the net. One will get tipped something. He's gonna have at least a point tonight. And I think his presence will get felt. I think if there were a night really to kind of bet on the Avs, it'll be tonight. I think the emotional wave will probably die down for Game 4, but Game 3 it'll be there for sure.
All right, NFL draft talk. Where do we want to start? We've got a few different things. So I wanted to kind of talk with you about a few different things. So rumors this week have been Broncos are looking or willing to move up in this draft to get who. I mean, we don't know. No one's really said. No one's really been clear. Some people think it could be for running back. Some people think it could be for receiver.
I do think it's been pretty clear that if they move up, if the Broncos move up, it will be for an offensive skill player. Which,
it does seem like an offensive skill player.
Which really, outside of moving a handful of spots, I don't believe in moving really far unless you're getting a Hall of Famer or a franchise quarterback. I think you just don't give up a ton, at least in round 1, because the cost is so high. You jump up in round 5 and 6, it's like a pack of Skittles and a but yeah, there are some Adam Schefter, right? That's like, it's for running back, and then it's like Rapport, I heard it could be a receiver.
Yeah.
Kliss and what Kliss mentioned, when Kliss gave kind of his 9 guys to zero on, the only wide receiver was Matthew Golden for whatever way, shape, or form. I essentially have, it's like really the Emeka Ibuka, I would be all in for. Ted McMillan, I would be all in for. Matthew Golden, it's like, is weird because I was like, I don't know, man. Like we got a guy that's, sub 6'1", sub 200 fast guy. You got Marvin Mims. Matthew Golden's a much different receiver than Marvin Mims, much more polished. He's out.
Sure.
He's an adequate blocker too. I think Ibuka is. I think Ted McMillan is. I think Luther Burden gives you some like swag and some tenacity, but he is not. He probably would be, but he would be replacement for like Marvin Mims as Marvin Mims moves up.
I mean,
for those guys, it's like those 3 really are but I don't know how I feel about moving up for them. I think the word on the street is this is not a great wide receiver draft. So maybe, if you feel like you're going to get a dynamic one, you got to get one of those 3 and you got to get them early. Colston, Loveland, and Tyler Warren will probably be gone before 14. And so I think that's a sneaky one to pay attention to. I do think the Colston Loveland love for the Broncos is real. I don't think that's fabricated. I think he's a 6'6", 245-pound receiver with good blocking technique. He doesn't have blocking strength yet. He hasn't got that grown man strength yet. He just turned 21. Has some time in the weight room to go, but all the physical skills are there. Saw what Brock Bowers did firsthand, and I bet Sean Payton wouldn't mind that. And then you got the 3 running backs. I add 3 because I do think your boy Travion Henderson will be a first-round running back. I think those 3 could go in the first round and could go before, like 25. So it's weird because it's a really strong defensive draft. Opposite of last year, right? First defensive player wasn't taken until 16, which is just right. 6 quarterbacks, top 12, first defensive player is the second half of the first round. Like what? That's just nuts.
It was to the Colts, right? It was
it was
defensive end. I can't think of his. That too. That's right.
And then Dallas Turner right after, and then you got the couple cornerbacks. But really, that was the kind of gist of it. Now you got Jihad Campbell, even where you got inside linebacker, Jalen Walker, depending on what you want to do, a few edges, ton of D tackles. I think there could be. I was listening to Brian Baldinger on the DNVR podcast talking about it could be like 8 defensive linemen drafted in the first round.
Yeah,
to me again, kind of goes back to the build in the trenches. You got some really strong presence there. So I think the Broncos can go a ton of directions. Rumors aplenty about them moving up. If we're watching it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is the correct day.
Thursday.
If we're watching it Thursday night at the Rock at 22934 East Smoky Hill Road, Aurora, Colorado, with the Let's Talk Broncos crew and the altitude adjustments, Mario Batanzi and folks. If we're there watching it, and they they go up, comes across sticker, Broncos acquire one. What pick do you think that they would want? Where do you think that pick, if you were a betting man, who do you think what number do you think they're zeroing in on? Let's do that. Here we go. And then who would you feel really good about, considering, I think you and I are both in the camp of they finally got their draft picks back. I think giving away a bunch right now for a team that, in my opinion, is still kind of in the building process.
Right.
For that to be worth it, you'd have to get a stud, and that stud would be. So go ahead and finish all those thoughts and sentences, because it's
hard. I don't really believe in moving up in this draft. I'll say that. I'd say if Tyler Warren's there at 13 and you think that the Colts might take him and you really want that guy, then I say I would be okay, he was probably the one that I would be most okay with him going and making a move for. I don't think Ginty's going to get past 10. You know, if he's sitting there for the Bears at 10, I just don't think he's going to fall beyond that. So I don't know that that's realistic. If he fell past that, then maybe I would feel that way as well. Like, okay, Ginty's someone you might want to go and get. I don't really want to move up into the top 10. It's just too expensive. You know, a lot of people are saying, you know, maybe where the Saints are, maybe the Saints are looking to move back. That might be an opportunity for someone to move in there and take someone. And I don't think you have enough, you know, massive glaring need on the defensive side to move up and get anyone on the defensive side of the ball. You know, I think there are guys that I would feel better about if they moved up 5 picks, something like that. But if you're moving up, you know, 10, 12 picks to try and land a top 10 talent, I just don't think this is the draft you want to do that. I just, you know, I think that the consensus is that I think maybe Daniel Jeremiah says this is a starter draft, not a superstar draft, you know? And so to me, the what makes sense would be to move backwards, acquire more picks, get some guys you think that could be starters in this offense or defense, and really just start to build.
But with that, though, do you know how many times Sean Payton has moved back in the first round in his illustrious career?
I don't know how many, but I'm guessing it's not often.
That's 0. He does not trade back. That said,
not very
how
often.
many times? Do you know how many times my man George Payton has traded back? And so one chat is litty, as the kids would say. Nice job. I'm going to try and grab a couple of those here in a second, but
yeah,
appreciate you all interacting in there. Nice. It's fun just to see the back and forth.
Yeah, who would you guys want to see us trade up for, if anyone?
Yeah, I really want to know. I think the marriage between George Payton and Sean Payton, I think at first, I think we all really felt, and I'm a George Payton fan, like he's gonna go. You know, like there's no way that this can happen. Sean Payton is is an alpha, it's my way or the highway kind of dude, and they have the healthiest relationship I know of. And you and I are married, and it's been above 10 years, you know, like we've had it a long time. Not to the same person, but sisters, if you guys didn't know. And
no thruples here.
No thruples here. And the fact that those two have different opinions, I think really prepares this team to be prepared to move up and be prepared to move back. I think if I were to say, if that trade card were to come in, they moved into the top 10, because I think I would only move into the top 10. Because I think there's just a handful of elite blue chip guys. Sure. I would move up from 20 to 14 to get a guy that I could get at 20 or 22. Because I do think that there's a lot of those guys. I think that the interchangeable talent in kind of the second tier to third tier leaves me much more. I'd much rather trade to 33 with Cleveland, get a couple extra picks, because I think the caliber of player at 33 probably be pretty close to 20. That said, if I got to 8, I don't know why I picked 8, dart throw. Is that Carolina?
Carolina, yeah.
Dart throw there because of Tyler Warren, Genty, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, right? Like even Mason Graham, who I think a lot of us are. There's like the pro Mason is a baller. He's all right. So even if you put him, I think there's a handful of those guys, and that's about where the number stops. And so to me, I'm only going in there for a blue chipper. Like that's a Pro Bowl player by year 2. Because in the end, you're betting probably another starter on day 2, at least to get up there, and potentially another day 2 pick next year. So that's 3 potential starters on rookie cost-controlled contracts to get a player now for a team that still has got some pieces in the, that you need playmakers. So you're really hoping to get that. And I think really if it's not for Genty and it's not for Tyler Warren, and even that, I'm a huge Tyler Warren guy. I wouldn't trade up for Tyler Warren. I don't think he's a physical specimen. He's not Brock Bowers.
No.
And he's going to go higher than Brock Bowers, which is just crazy to me because of Brock Bowers, And I saw in the chat too, like Chris, that Brock Bowers, neither of the guys in the draft are Brock Bowers 100%, but this is the reactivity of the league to say like, oh, all right, well, we can get a playmaking tight end because then we can do some stuff that Brock Bowers did, even though they're not Brock Bowers, just to like be clear.
Right.
They aren't that for sure, but his impact on it's the same as Saquon Barkley. None of these running backs, Saquon Barkley. I love Genty. I don't think he's going to be Saquon Barkley. But he got pushed up draft boards because Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs, like those guys had a season and kind of brought back the value of it. And so here we are. And so here we're back. I think that they should stand packed at 20. I would much rather have them move back.
Me too.
Especially if there's going to be a Shador fall. I do not want Shador to fall out of the first round because then that means no one wanted to trade up to 21 or to 20 and to get in front of the Pittsburgh to get him. If a team did that, I'd be super pumped about it. Even if it were Pittsburgh themselves saying, hey, you know what? We don't want to risk it. Like we'll give you a fourth, like let us move up. And I think that that's the part that I'm leaning on a little bit. But I do think that the Broncos are going to leave with a day one starter. And I know we'll talk about our predictions here in a minute about who and what. But I really don't want or think that they should move up for anyone outside of those, 4 or 5 top prospects. And Mason Graham, I don't think is a good fit. I think skill-wise, because of the 3-man front, I think he's too stubby.
I agree.
To be an effective, I think he's a 4-down lineman kind of guy. Abdul Carter, there's no way in hell he would get down there, and he wouldn't get that far. Travis, like, there's no point even thinking about how great that would be. That's just like heartbreak. Bo Nix is better than Cam Ward, so don't need to do that. And there's an offensive lineman I think that I could draft right now that's better than even like Mike McGlinchey. At this point, I am not stubby. Okay. Actually, I have long arms for my height wise. I would say I'm stubby, not quite stumpy. I'm not stumpy, but yeah, I'm not tall.
All right.
So I see a lot of like different
Loveland to 20.
We got Colson. We got some.
I would be fine with Loveland to 20.
We got some. I agree with Judson. Moving up for Genty is a terrible idea, especially because what you have to get him. I agree with it. Like, it's been fun to talk about, right? Like, how would we be excited in the end? Because it's like the temperature, the vibe of Broncos country. If they drafted Genty, would be super. Like, I bet the high would be really good, and then you look at the cost, and it's like 2 firsts, a second, and a third.
Yeah,
San Francisco didn't even give that up for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, and it's one of those things.
All pro.
Like, Sean Payton likes to have a 2-back rotation, and so to move up for a running back who's probably going to be, he would get the majority of the carries just because the room is weak.
He'd get
but at some point,
sure.
But at some point, he's going to be paired with someone else. It's going to eat into his touches. And like, do you move up and give up, draft picks to do that? I just don't know that that's the answer either. And so,
especially because you're giving up starters, you're not giving up up dart throws, right? And the way
exactly
is looked at is anyone in rounds 1 through 3. So really, round 1 is that guy should be a year 1 starter. Round 2 and 3 is those are developmental starters, should be starting by year 2 or by year 3. Usually, you draft those guys to replace high impact players who are going to cost a lot, right? And so that's ideally how you kind of want to do some of the stuff. Like we just got the fact that the Broncos have a good roster right now should be mind-boggling because they haven't had enough top value draft capital to really create, and that's why our playmakers are that roster is so bare because you had to draft in trenches and you had to draft premium positions in round 2 and 3. Because you didn't have ones, right? Nick Benito, and then around second. Correct. Ideally, you're getting those guys in round 1 so you can get, offensive linemen to move Powers on, or, a better option at center, or, developmental safety. So you don't have to pay Brandon Jones or Hufanga, all of that stuff. So,
Sean
Payton will move up for a pass rusher. Most of the time, that move up won't be good, though. Stayed home for Cam Jordan, great pick. Moved up, Peyton Turner, and not great. Derek Carmen would be awesome. I heard his medicals are not great. Not great.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that I like there, and so it makes it's just a lot more enticing to stay and make your pick or trade back. It just is, and I'm sure a lot of teams feel that way. So we'll see what ends up shaking out. I don't know. We'll make some predictions about who we think the Broncos will pick and whether they'll move forward or backwards towards the end. I want to talk about who you think are some safe picks that the Broncos could make, and maybe some of the more risky picks that, and maybe you feel fine about taking a risky pick, or maybe you feel better about taking the more like a high floor guy. So maybe we can just alternate. Who's someone you see as, let's start with a safe pick. Who do you think would be a safe pick for the Broncos that would improve this team day one, and that could step in and fill in some sort of starting role?
Cool. Yeah, I think
that's realistic.
I think the one for me, Emeka Egbuka. I think I feel pretty confident in knowing what his floor is.
Yeah.
And he is the most technically sound receiver. He's the most complete receiver. Probably has got the best coaching out of all of them, right? Like, it's wide receiver U for a reason. Yep. And mind you, he's no slouch, 9.7 on the RAS. So there isn't a part of his game that's not above average. Is there anything that's elite other than, maybe a competitive spirit, which you can measure?
Yeah.
The Tim Tebow scale, as I would call it.
Right.
He would be one. I think if they picked him, my insecurities of a bust on our hands would be pretty minimal. Yeah. So that's my one.
I like that. I think that's fair. I mean, Egbuka does all the little things well. He's a polished route runner. He gives effort. He blocks well at the receiver position. He has good hands. I think he probably lacks a little bit of separation compared to some other guys, but he's a guy that you line up in the slot, and you can probably line him up outside as well. I think he probably profiles better playing out of the slot just for that versatility, and then you could get Mims clearing out one of those sides to open up some space.
Yeah, he's a guy that really
so
can
I like
play
that.
all three of the wide receiver positions, right? I think he's a guy that's pro ready. To me, I think he's probably the Travis Hunter, and he's like a different pro ready.
Right.
He's just like the kid that's just better than everyone on the field.
Yeah, at everything.
He's doing it, why he's doing it, but the guy just like he's gonna have 2 touchdowns and a pick in the same. Just sign it up. But I think for if he suits up first game, I'm gonna feel pretty good about he's gonna have 4 catches for 65 yards, and maybe draw 1 pass interference. Like, he's just gonna do the smart stuff, and I would put money in the bank on it, right? Like, he's already probably their wide receiver 2 without having to bump Mims. Like, those guys can interchange for wide receiver 1 stuff. Like, he's always just going to set a good baseline. Trying to think about who else would be. I like your Shamar Stewart, risky. Kenneth Grant, safe. I like that.
Yeah.
But even Kenneth Grant,
I agree with that.
projecting his pass rushing production.
Because I love Kenneth Grant. I love Kenneth Grant.
Yep. They rotated a ton at Michigan because they had really good defensive players. And he also, this all of 6'3", 330, and that isn't necessarily his forte. So even with him a little bit, my bust worry is a little high.
I could see a little bit of best worry.
Yeah, if you're taking him in the first round, I need 5 sacks a year from you, which isn't
right
mind-boggling, but from the interior to get for a first-round guy, I got to have you be a guy that is a threat on every down, and I don't know that he's there yet.
Yeah, I think when you look at a player that's his size, there's always a little bit of worry. Like, okay, what does this look like at the pro level? Like, he's young. Maybe he can maintain that weight and put some strength on that frame and be able to be functional at that weight. I think that there's always a worry though with the guys that are as big and heavy as Kenneth Grant. Like, how does that end up looking down the road in 5 years? Is it where
That's fair.
he can only be in rotation because he can't stay on the field because he gets gassed? Or, does he only give effort, on half the plays because half the time he's trying to catch his breath?
Yeah, it's
I
kind of
think
like
you
who's
saw
going to
that
be a
a little
second
bit.
contract guy, right? Like if we're
Right,
who do you
right.
feel good about that he's going to make it to a second contract? All right, who's your
I think
first bet?
Jahad Campbell, if he made it there, would be
Ooh,
a fantastic, safe, impactful pick. And
I
I
like
think that you could play
that.
him
Yeah,
inside or at edge. I think with Greenlaw, you would probably play him at edge. And
especially
he
like on
can rush the
passing
passer
downs.
a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, on passing downs. Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously that could be interchangeable in coverage. I mean, you probably want
Are you
him out
worried
there in
about
coverage
Are you
too.
worried about the Alabama injury histories? What's the saying about Alabama? If you were there, if you played 4 years, you left with a national championship and a surgery, right? And it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you just
it's
because they
true.
beat the crap out of you. I think he's hurt right now. That's interesting because
Yeah.
he's like before the season, he was like he's a good athlete. We'll see. This is really his kind of first year starting, but the year he put together, I agree with you. Like all of his traits are there, and
Yep.
he's a guy who I still think he read and reacts as opposed to like instinct, but he's not wrong either when he's not a guess guy. He's not Kenneth Murray.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. I think that's a good pick.
I think it's just like he raises the floor of that unit right away. And then there is some versatility. So if you want him in coverage, you can keep him out there for coverage. And if you need him to rush the passer, you can have him out there doing that too. I think he's someone that I think is low risk. But I don't know that his ceiling's as high as someone like a Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart could end up being, he's just an athletic freak. So, I think you've got to really be discerning about where you think this team is. And if you think that you need to swing so that you can, hit a home run on a player that has some upside as far as traits go, then I'm fine with that. But they have to make sure that they understand that there's risk in that when in a class that there's a lot of solid guys that can fill in holes,
Yeah. That's interesting. That's an interesting way to look at it. Outside of that, maybe who's the most risky? I'm going to add risky that I would take a flyer on, like that I would.
Okay.
I would still kind of want the Broncos to take just because I think there's a bunch of guys that are probably a risk that I'm like, and I don't think that the Broncos would take them anyway. This is going to be a little corner because I think it would be really good for the Broncos to just I think corner is like pass rushers is like good shooters. Like you never have enough of them. Keep getting them. And so I'm going to say two players because, of course, I'm the guy and I'm going to bend the rules. So I think Will Johnson because of injury history. Like I don't know.
Okay.
And then you opt out for like, are you good? And if that's going to be some things, he also I don't think is particularly test fast. I think that's why he didn't win the 40. But I never saw him in a matchup where he didn't look ready. So injuries with him. And then I actually think Jahdae Barron, who won the Thorpe Award, best defensive back in the country.
Interesting.
Because I think if you have him as kind of an interior slot corner safety, I think he'll flourish. I think he'll be absolutely phenomenal. His willingness to tackle, super smart. He's going to come in pretty ready. I think he's 23. He's going to come in and I think ready to go. That said, I don't know that I feel really good about him being an outside primary corner because of the lack of length. Good athlete, but he's not, not a real freak of an athlete. And I think when you are outside, you have to have probably multiple high-end traits, length, speed, recovery, agility, right? Like you gotta have a couple of those things to go against. This league is riddled with dudes who are wide receiver 1 capabilities, and half the teams have, plus wide receiver 2s that could be wide receiver 1s. And, he comes in shorter and with less length than Riley Moss does. And I know that was a concern that we have for him. He has good attributes, not great attributes. So to me, I think there will be a limit. Not many guys become perennial all-pro corners and, Hall of Fame worthy that don't have a plus trait. It's usually that they got missed, not that they, that they overcame the lack of traits. Like I'm 5'8", $180. I'm not going to be able to overcome that deficit playing against a 6'5" receiver like Ted McMillan ever. It's not going to be possible. And so for him, he is a player I would love in Denver. I think if he gets in the wrong system or the wrong scheme, especially for a first round pick, I'd be, for a good safety, like, do I really want to use the top 20 pick on a good safety, not a Kyle Hamilton, not a, game changing Ed Reed, that kind of stuff. So that's I would still take him. If they picked him at 20, I'd be all right with it, but my bus meter would be on high.
Yeah, no, I like that. There's a few guys for me. I think one of them is someone who we see mocked to the Broncos a lot, and that's Omarion Hampton. I think that it's just, for me, it's a cost thing too, right? To get the second best, quote unquote, running back in the prospect in the draft. I don't know. I don't see a lot of elite traits with him. And so that's what makes me worry about that pick maybe a little bit more. I think with Travion Henderson, there's elite hands in the passing game. And I think that he's, as far as running backs go in this class, he's the best blocker. He's the best at picking up blitzes. He will keep Bo Nix clean in the pocket. Omarion can be physical blocking, but struggles with it a little bit. And I don't know how he's going to do as a pass catcher in this offense. I think he's capable, but it's not something that he was asked to do often. And so he surprised me with his speed at the combine. I was impressed by that. I'm glad that he would tested well, and I think that bodes well for him. I think he has a great knack for running to space as opposed to running into defenders, which I think, there's a lot of guys that don't have that sort of vision. So there are things to like about him, but I think that, I think when you think of physical running backs like Javonte Williams that came from maybe a similar school, a similar thought of a similar offense, maybe he's not going to be as bruising in the run game as you hope, and maybe you would do better with someone who can make a play, not just between the tackles. So he's one that I'm like a little bit iffy.
It's interesting because I go back and forth. It's like if they drafted him, I'd be okay because I see the vision of the plan, right? Like,
me too.
Be a good 3-down running back. He has elite traits when it comes to his RAS score, size, weight.
Yes.
Like 4.4, so 4.48 on the 40, 20-yard split, 2.58. So he's in the 90th percentile for 40-yard dash, 89th percentile for 20-yard split, 87th percentile. So he is a kind of a great athlete in all of that. His elite trait actually comes with his vert jump, 38 inches, broad jump, 10 feet, 10 inches. And that to me is like first step burst. His agility, be able to make guys miss in the hole. So it wouldn't be like a sexy, like, oh yeah, it's a, like every time he touches it, you can go to the house. Not that he can't. Take one. Sure. You saw plenty of those in the highlight reels, but I'm not, every time he gets the ball, you're not on edge, like, oh, what's going to happen there? So I agree with you. I think to me, though, it's more of like, what do fans expect, the fantasy football press, versus like, how good will he be as a football player? You draft him at 20, what would most people say about Najee Harris? Najee Harris was a, first round running back, 4 years, produced 1,000-yard seasons every single year, was able to catch the ball. Would the Steelers do that again for Najee, considering all that?
Probably
I don't think
not.
that they would, right? And so
right.
I think Omarion Hampton could have that impact at least. Yes, I do. Is that what we would want at 20th? Sadly, it's like our threshold for running backs right now is like what it used to be for quarterbacks. A little bit
sure,
like we don't have a good one. Like we haven't had a good running game since Phil left, right? Like it's been, and so getting someone that's like, they could be like, essentially he could be Melvin Gordon. Like, like at 20,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and I think we can all say like we trust Sean Payton probably at this point to like whatever he picks is in the vision. Like we could see that it could happen. That said, we all don't have to like drink the Kool-Aid and be like, oh, like whatever he does turns to gold. Like let's, as an estimate was in way over his head. That was a guy that they picked. There's been some things that still will need to work out. So I agree with that. Kind of like your take on that. I think he'll be a good player. I worry about the bust factor from a fan base on like what we expect from him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
First, what he might be a guy that gives us 900 to 1,100 yards every year, 40 catches, and whatever. But it's not. He's not a threat every time he touches the ball. He's good, solid, which you need that. But it's being sold to us a little bit like he's all of it. And I don't know that he's all of it. I don't know he's not. We'll find out. But I see that for sure.
Yeah. One more guy that I think would be. See, this was one that I'd be more in favor of just because he's been one of my guys for a while, and that's Nick Imanwari, safety, okay. South Carolina. And it's funny because there's a lot of guys that don't have him in their top 50. Best players in this draft, which I think is surprising just from his traits alone. But I think that it's one of those guys that like you see the testing, got a lot like Shamar Stewart, right? You see the testing, you see the traits. Maybe the production wasn't exactly what you wanted it to be in college, but those are things that will translate to the next level. I don't know that he's a seamless fit right now with the personnel that the Broncos have, but if you're looking for him to eventually kind of be in that box safety. I don't know. I think he's got some ability to roam a little bit. He's obviously got the speed. It's just his read and reactability. We've got to see an improvement there. His athleticism is insane. He makes some pretty insane plays on the ball. He's someone that I would be willing to take a risk on. But with that safety room where it's at right now, at least with your starters, you probably like what you have. You probably don't need to take someone in the first round. So a little mixed feelings on that one. But if they walked away with him, I'd feel good about who he is. I think who you're getting. And it's just a matter of knowing feeling whether you can polish him up or not.
I like it. If they went offensive lineman, part of me is like, I see an instant spot. Really, it's like center, left guard with Ben Powers. You kind of maybe plan for his exit next year. But they have a really good offensive line right now. And so unless you're going to get a guy and be able to move the current starter, getting a guy in round one, it's funny. I've wanted an offensive lineman in round one for a long time. And then it's like, nope, not this draft though. Like not this draft. I don't, even if it's Memba or Banks, if it's like, I think all those guys could be good players. That to me would be like it would be a wasted opportunity to get someone that is in the cards now. Drafting on strength is great. Drafting on a strength while not having, to me, a really deep playmaking receiving core, having a bear and running back room outside of Evan Ingram, having a really questionable tight end group. How do they fit? Could always use some more playmakers on defense. Especially planning at inside linebacker and corner. And, most of your defensive linemen are going to be unrestricted free agents next year. So that would be a big whiff for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. I just think I don't know. Good offensive linemen can be hard to come by, but I also agree. Like you're missing a chance to kind of strike at a skill position, which is what I think we all feel would be most beneficial to this team. So it's mixed. Like I would get it, but I would also be a little underwhelmed, even if it was a Kelvin Banks, who I think is going to be a really good guard in this league, and probably could fill in for Ben Powers next year. I just, it doesn't move the needle a ton for me. Would I understand? Yeah. Would I be stoked? Probably not right away, at least. Maybe you could talk me into being excited about it, but it's definitely a future move. And I think we want to see them make some moves for this upcoming season,
Yep. Yeah.
100%. 5 minutes left or so. Who's someone that you don't want the Broncos to pick. Maybe you've seen drafted there. You don't want to end up with the Broncos. I think this is a fun question.
That's good. So I've seen a few. Jalen Walker would be one. I think he's a really talented player. I think he's Isaiah Simmons, and Vance Joseph really struggled with a guy that's like really good at everything and knowing where to put him. He also just isn't that refined inside, and then would probably come in and be the fourth best pass rusher, maybe. I think Tillman would even have something to say. So that one I wouldn't be overly thrilled by. And then I think if they were to draft, man, like who's like reasonable outside of an offensive lineman, which I think that one is my big hang up.
Sure.
I would take any of the top 5 defensive linemen. I think if they went edge in general, probably at 20, even though I feel like you need all the pass rushers, unless that's telling us something about Benito or they're going to move off of Cooper pretty soon. I would be burnt. And then lastly, I think player wise would actually be Malachi Starks. I think that he's what he does well, they do really well. So he wouldn't even be in the third safety. I think PJ is a really good third safety. Hufanga, I'm not taking him off. Brandon Jones was arguably all pro level last year. I'm not going to take him off the field. I don't think he's physical enough like PJ to kind of come in and play in the box. So I think if they picked Malachi Starks, that would be the one pick that I think I would be pissed. Like I would throw the pencil. Like, because you had to pretend like you're mad on camera. I heard that from one of the podcasts that Chris threw my way. Like that would be one that I would be upset by. Like I don't see the vision for that. And I don't, I'm not going to just trust the organization. Like that's a terrible match, especially in the first round. He fell to 51 or something. Sure, then take the best player, figure it out. But at round 1, when you need a certain type of dude at a position that's going to get a ton of run, that would be one that I wouldn't agree with.
Okay. I like that. For me, I think it's Matthew Golden, and I've thought about it a lot. Ooh. And it's someone that it's funny because it's a skill position guy. He's just not my favorite. He's just, and I did like him coming into the draft process kind of before we started digging into all these guys. He's a guy that I noted had some potential that I definitely wanted to watch more. I just feel like he never quite took the reins in Texas. I think he had the chance to be their de facto wide receiver 1 and just never was able to kind of run away with that. I think a lot of that is they were trying to force Isaiah Bond to be someone that he wasn't, to be a little more dynamic than he was. As far as, being more polished, obviously he's a speed demon, but
and just like an overall bad dude. I don't know if
and probably not a guy you want to be your leader.
That's what are you doing? That's your guy. Like he's not even. And you got Matthew Golden. I worry that the coaches didn't have a ton of because I think where did he come from, like Tulsa or Houston. And I worry that the coaches really had to recognize that he was the best receiver. I don't know if that's on him because I agree with you. Like, what took you so long? Or if that's because coaches have their guy. Like, we got him from Alabama. We got Bond from Alabama. Like, nope, he's playing. And if we just get whatever all that crap might be. So I worry because I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if he just didn't wow him until he had an opportunity to wow him, or if the coaches are humans and have their flaws and like who their guys are. So I think I don't think he's quite as polished as a lot of people do. I think he has a hard time at the top of breaks with physical cornerbacks. I don't think he's got great play strength right now, which, it does not an end all be all for a receiver. But if he doesn't get off cleanly, that separation kind of goes away. Yeah. I just think he needs to play stronger. I think he gives up on routes sometimes if he feels like he's well covered. So it's just one of those things, it's a preference thing. To be honest, outside of the Arizona State game, like, did he have a game that he dominated, right? Where most of the time, if you get a round 1 receiver, some point in the season, it doesn't matter, level of competition, right? It's Ohio, Northern Colorado, like you beat the crap but you had 5 catches for $150 and 2 touchdowns, right? Like a game that's like, you'll tell your grandkids about that game. He did have a really good game against Texas, but even that, like, I don't remember him having a game where it was like all game, and that's kind of how I feel right now about Marvin Mims, where Marvin Mims isn't a guy that I would bank on. Like, this is a Marvin Mims game, right? Like I've said about Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's had games where he's, 10 catches, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like there's nothing you can do. That guy's just mossing you over your dome. And for me, again, if I get around one receiver, that's what that's my thought is I'm going to have a guy that no matter what, is going to have 6 for 80 every night.
Yep.
Okay. And if you don't match up well or respect him, he's going to have 10 for 200, like that game will happen. And so I agree with you with Matthew Golden. I think he has a projection for sure for me, which I think inherently then that is risk, right? Like it's not one that I can say with any confidence or a huge amount because we've never seen him do it yet.
Yeah. And I think he ran a 4.39, and I just don't see that speed on the field for some reason. And I don't know if that's something he'll grow into or not. But he's just not my favorite. So let's round out with two things quick. Who would you be ecstatic if the Broncos drafted at 20? And who do you think the Broncos will actually draft at 20?
Yeah.
So let's do our ideal pick first.
Ideal, it would be Ashton Genty. That would be ideal. Let's move that one off.
Sure. I mean, realistic ideal.
Realistic ideal. That would be Ted McMillan.
Okay.
I think that's one.
I do think that it was realistic.
I think they can fall, or even he falls to 16. They move up a couple spots.
Sure.
It's a minimal. So that would be my ideal. I think if Ted McMillan were a Bronco, you have him, Court, Vele, and Evan Ingram, like a tall ball. Like if we're inside of 20, like we're jump balling your dome.
Just throw it up.
G. Who do I think that they will leave with? I think that they will leave with Walter Nolan.
Okay.
I really have, like, the more that I've sat on it, think that it's going to be a defensive player first. I think Sean Payton has shown a propensity to do that often, actually. If you go back and kind of look at his history, he's a guy that pass rushers and defensive linemen get a ton of love from him. And so because too, there's some elite guys in there. I think that's a really good one. I think that they'll leave with a defensive lineman early. And I think that will be the pick. I think we'll all get thrown off and it's a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
Not saying I'd be thrilled.
Okay. I'm interested in that. I would be happy if it was Kenneth Grant. That's my guy. He's been my guy.
I love PG. Yeah.
Yeah, I love a big nose tackle that he's going to fit in that defensive scheme. He's going to be disruptive. I think you've got to worry about consistency with him. But, as a rookie, we have guys under contract, at least for this year. You can rotate him in and pick and choose your spots. I would be excited about that. I would really be excited for most of the Michigan guys. I hate to say that as an Ohio State fan, but I really love these Michigan prospects. Even Colston Loveland, I'd be fine with. But I think the Broncos are going to draft O'Marion Hampton. I do. And I think that is, when they're talking about moving up, I think that's someone that they would consider moving up for, maybe even to get ahead of the Cowboys, for him or Tet. Those are the two that I would think that they would pursue aggressively. And I don't love that. Again, we talked about the things that I would worry about drafting him there. But ultimately, I think it addresses the need. It's a talented high-end player. Just a matter of seeing how he puts it together on the field. So we are out of time. But we had a blast. Love talking draft. I will be sad when it's over, but we'll still talk about it afterwards. And then we get it, we get to start. Maybe I'll do some more summer scouting than I've ever done, and we can start talking about the draft earlier than January next year.
Hey, no, we did a little bit of in season, but I do think it would be good to get into. It's like sad. It's kind of like, if you celebrate Christmas, it's like the build up to Christmas sometimes is way more fun than Christmas, man. and then it comes and goes, and then you're like, oh, when did it come next year? Like that high. But this time next week, we'll have a full draft class to break down, grades, all of that good stuff. And then I wouldn't be shocked if there's a couple free agent acquisitions after, depending on how it lines up, right? or some deals to be made. So super excited about that. Appreciate you as always with the camaraderie. Come join us at the Rock. Aurora. Let's Talk Broncos. Altitude just spent. We'll be there. Come hang out.
Yeah, please do. Well, we got to run, but we appreciate you. Appreciate you sticking around talking draft with us. Reach out. We love talking ball. But otherwise, thank you. Be safe out there. And if you need a sports prescription, ask a doctor.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard for the car, so that's why it's all tinted. Wait a minute, had a real late night, woke up with my